Yudzai, and we are on the line that begins with himshich kav dak me'oi. This is 7 lines from the top of the page. And right now we are speaking about the oiros of Atzilus. Earlier we spoke about the kelim. And we said that in the kelim, even though there is no rule, there is no actual boundary, nonetheless there is something that can be identified as a kelim. Whereas the oiros have not even that idea. Why? I mean, what's the explanation of that? Because the oiros is a or of Ayin Soif, and Ayin Soif does not have any of these qualities of midas and seichel and so forth. And because the oiros are from the kav, and then he quotes from the Chaim, and this is where we're in the middle. The Chaim says, himshich kav dak me'oid ha'elyin. Himshich, that the Creator had drawn a kav dak, a very narrow line, me'oid ha'elyin, from the superior, from the superior light. Again, what is oir? What does it mean, oir ha'elyon? Oir in Chassidus is referring to a reflection of the etzem, not a fabricated light, like we want to think. A light created by some kind of a combustion. This we went through many times. I just want to bring us back to this. So this oir, this is an element that reflects the fact that there is the atzmus, the oir hisef. Since we are talking about this is going to be discussing oiris, so I want to bring us into this, and we should actually have a sense of what we're talking about. Again, this is not totally new. We have discussed this many times before. And one of the illustrations for that principle, we use the human being in his home. The human being, we say, occupies his home.
Sorry,
But
this is going to be illustrating what principle, I think.
What?
This is now going to illustrate the principle.
Oir.
Okay.
How does a human being occupy his home? The home is many times the size of the human being. And yet we say that this home is owned by this person and is fully imbued by his presence. In contrast, it can never be said that the dog lives in this home and therefore the dog occupies his home. Even though in today's mentality that becomes offensive, but we all understand that this is totally out of whack. The dog cannot own a house, a home, nor can the dog occupy it. What is the difference? Although it is, so to speak, intuitively clear to all of us, but we have to think into this and see what, in fact, is the significance of this. In order to have oir, there has to be an etzem, a fundamental reality. What is fundamental reality means? A reality that is not due to some other circumstance. As we always say, every creature in the world needs shelter. When there is a deluge, all creatures hide under something to protect themselves against this waterfall. That does not mean this does not constitute the principle. The Gemara says, "Odem she'er bayis and the odem." A human being is a home. It's not just for protection. There's a certain reality that comes with it. What is this reality? The home denotes and represents the fact that his presence in the world is not just a practical presence, but he actually has a right and he owns a part of the world. His presence in the world is real to the extent that it is not out of line to say that the whole world was created for the sake of the human being. I said the other day, I mentioned it here, things come up as I'm discussing. I'm trying to show people things that we should see and we don't see. So there was this bocher who could not see the significance of marriage. So I said to him, marriage is what makes a human being a full-fledged human being. He could not give it to illustrate this thing. So he is a member of a very large family. And he comes the seventh out of line of 14 kids.
Smack in the middle.
Smack in the middle. He's a gifted guy, he's not an idiot. The seventh in So I said to him, look, your name is Eliyahu, for example. I don't want to mention name, who knows maybe something. Your name is such and such. What if your parents decided that you don't get an individual name? Enough. We have 7 names already. Enough. You are going to be number 7. And the kid comes after you is number 8. You will be able to address you. Everybody will know who I'm talking about. What's the point of giving you a name? Look at this beautiful smiles that we get. Everybody senses that this does not work. What is missing? If a name is for the purpose of reference, people have to give names to dogs. They have names. Is that the same thing as giving a name to a human being? We have to sense these things. This is primary to understand in DailyChassidus. This is an intellectual sense. This is not an emotional sense. Emotionally, absolutely sufficient to say, I have a reference, I have a place on the table. What's your place? I'm number 4 on this line. Perfectly okay. What is the difference between having a proper name and having a sequential name? So there are many ways of presenting it, but it's so clear and everybody is sensitive to it. A sequential name does not give him, so to speak, a standalone presence. He is there relative to somebody else. A human being has a primary presence. How he is directly created by God. He is not second to something else. And God speaks to him directly and gives him instructions and puts a responsibility upon him as an individual, not as part of anything else, not as secondary to anything else. Yesterday I was at a Ufruf Kiddush. So a chassan came up to me. I don't even know him, but whenever he came up to me and says, "How do I prepare myself for the day of the chassan?" I didn't know the chassan. Well, anyway, I know the mishpacha. We talked a little bit. I said, "Look, you have to realize one thing. Up until the moment of your wedding, you're a private citizen.
You're what?
You're a private citizen. When you're going to get married, now you're a member. You're a member of the general society of the world. You're a building block of the world. Now your responsibility goes way out from your personal experience. Everything you do takes root, becomes real in the world. Such an entity that has, so to speak, a presence, a God-given presence, not a relative human social presence. He has what we say, the ability and the God-given ability to own property in the world. And the property that he owns is not just for practical use, it's his property. And you have to respect it. Like I always say, in your home, if someone climbs up into your attic, the place in the attic that you have never even seen, he climbs into the attic and he establishes a dwelling there. And he says, "You have no right to throw me out of here. I'm not displacing you. This is Hashem's world. The space belongs to Hashem, not to you. How are you throwing out?" So we say, absolutely, you get out. And if you don't go out, I'm going to get the police to throw you out. By what right? This home is my home. And my presence is every last corner of this home. This presence, this is called the oyer of the etzem, of the reality. This oyer is truly a reflection, a ha'or, of the reality of the human being himself. There's a human being himself, and this is a ha'or of it. As a result of that, that place also has to be kept in order and has to be kept clean, and whatever degree of respect that the place is appropriate, it has to be. Because this is what's called the ha'ora of the etzem. Having said that, now we're going back to the upper echelons, saying oirois, oyer. Now, one more notch in this. This element of oil, yes, indeed, in the home we can sense it very, very clearly. But then that continues throughout the entire, what's called Seder Histalshelus, entire development of human activity. So that, as mentioned all the time, that a human being, when it comes to eating, he has to have a place where he eats. It has to be properly set up. This is a subset. This is a narrower set of the principle of his presence. But it is a subset. It is a order. It's further drawing down to a lower level. Like we pointed out the other day, several times. I'm repeating these things because I feel it's necessary to repeat it. It should settle in our mind and begin to really understand what this is about. The story that I told you about the Rebbe Rashab and his brother Razo and the Maharash, with the two brothers were discussing what is the difference between a goy and a yid. So the Maharash called in Laharul the goy of the yard and he asked him, "Did you eat?" "Yes." "Why did you eat?" He said, "So that I would live." So they pointed out that this kind of answer, that he eats so that he would live, is a reflection of the place where this goy lived, operated. If you meet a goy in the street and ask him, "Why did you eat?" he said, "Because I was hungry." It was a bodily demand. To sense and know that there is something much superior, much more human of the cause for eating, that you already need a different kind of orientation. We all understand that this is extremely significant. If you say, "I eat so that I would live," that means that you're conscious of the significance of life. And this is something which, unfortunately, nowadays is lost upon people. They're involved in how I feel, and what I'm comfortable, and do I like the food? Life is so remote. To be concerned about life is so remote in today's mentality. It's unbelievable. But that is what the human being is about. This is what makes him live, and this is what makes him be. How so? Why did it make it be? We all know. Take the life out of the body, what happens to the body? It disintegrates. The physical body disintegrates. Life is that which is the strength of the body itself. This is the godly presence in everything. So this oil element further is drawn down further to all aspects of existence. So it says in Chaim that this oil originates in the oil ha'elyon, in the oil in safe, in the oil of Atzmos itself. Whenever you see oil, it is immediately elusive. Elusive means it immediately points to the fact that there is an etzem there. Even though you see a very minuscule amount of it. And thus, etzem is completely undefinable, so too is the oil undefinable. Because the oil is the oil that reflects the etzem. Okay. Enough said for this moment. Yeah.
Just a question from before. We're talking about the calf there. I want to know, is there why is it called, or why is it narrow? Is there a reason why it's narrow?
Yes, that's what you're going to learn right now. So this kav is me'oir elyon. Is from the oir ha'elyon, the superior light which is reflective of the etzem itself. V'hagam, although the himshich is hakav hu al behatzimtzum, that the kav is drawn through the tzimtzum, and this is what makes it into a kav. Otherwise, the oil has no restrictions at all. It is everything and everywhere. It does not come in the form of a kav of a line. The klolus is habuzu atzilus, since that the coming to be, the creation of atzilus overall. Hein atzilus oiris, v'atzilus hakelim, both the atzilus of the oiris, the emanation of the oiris, and the emanation of the kelim. Hakel hu alidei hatzimtzum. Everything came through the tzimtzum sheho yobo oirin soy baru. The tzimtzum that took effect in the oirin soy baru. We'll try to discuss the principle of tzimtzum in a moment. Shaharei hatzimtzum hoyo beho'ir. Since that we know that the tzimtzum, this contraction, this reduction, was in the oil. Ukenoiden, as is known, the lifnei hatzimtzum, that before the tzimtzum, hoyo hagiloi bibchinas ein soif mamo. Before the tzimtzum, then the gilui from atzmum, etzem holokus, was bibchinas ein soif mamos, in truly in a form of, in a manner of ein soif. To discuss this definitively is not possible at this moment. But it is necessary that we should all focus in and understand again, focusing on the human being. Human being is here in the world, and it functions through in the body. And we all realize that the functioning element and the focus and that which directs him and gives him ability to function is the neshama that's in the guf. Even to the extent that if you hit your hand and it hurts you, so it hurts the body. It doesn't hurt the body. It is only the life element that senses that this is hurting. The body does not know what it means to be hurt in itself, without the neshama. All sensitivity is due to the life element that's in the body. Let me take this a little bit higher. What is this in the life element? We can't really understand and define life. But when we say the life element, what do you mean by that? Okay, I hope I have you with me, and we'll go right into it. Just as we know, as we always bring up, that if you have a cut in your finger, you know for sure that the finger is going to heal, unless there is some kind of a problem. Why would it heal? It's cut. It's really cut and it's apart. How does it going to heal? How does the finger know to heal? Does the finger know that it's damaged? The finger doesn't know the difference between being damaged or whole. Who knows that it's damaged? The life element in the finger. The neshama, the nefesh. Because the nefesh has a function, every part of the human body, the nefesh gives it life because that is part of its mission. It has a mission. It has to, and definitely has to be whole and to fulfill the mission of the nefesh. This is the life element. So now, if the finger is damaged, the mission giver, the neshama, is not damaged. That cannot be damaged. That stays whole under all circumstances. And this is why the neshama is still alive and well, and it forces, directs the structure of the finger to reconnect and re-heal to perfection. How does it know what perfection is? The neshama tells it what perfection is. The group doesn't know what perfection is. The group does not have perfection initially on its own. Perfection of the group is a reflection of the neshama that's in it.
Is it to say that the neshama is direct commanding on a cut? Is the neshama direct? Is able to relate to the group and that
Yes, well, that's what slapshus means. Absolutely. The neshama is mislapshus in every part of the group.
The neshama means the nefesh alakus, or the
what?
The neshama means the nefesh alakus, or
the nefesh achiyunis, and the nefesh alakus to the nefesh achiyunis. Because when you do a mitzvah, the nefesh alakus is enlivening, is directing you to do a mitzvah. But in order to fulfill the mitzvah on a physical level, he has to go to the nefesh achiyunis.
And when it comes to such a thing, like healing something,
yes, absolutely.
Also from the nefesh alakus is commanded the nefesh achiyunis, or the nefesh
ultimately, yes. That already is a question. The nefesh alakus, the Rambam says, "Yes, haguf bori v'shol midaki Hashem."
What does that mean?
It means that the goof should be healthy and complete, whole, without damage, is one of the ways of Hashem. Is a representative of Hashem's presence.
And if it's not whole? If it's deformed or defective?
What?
If it's deformed or defective?
Okay. A person has to be healthy, has to keep himself healthy. That's why the Rambam says that's why a person has to have the proper means, the proper habits, how he eats and how he sleeps and so forth. Because Midaki Hashem. So therefore the Nefesh Elokis is also interested in a healthy body. There was a story of a chassid, I can't remember exactly who this was, a very big Oymed Elokis. I've mentioned it once before. who did a lot of fasting to purify himself. He did a lot of fasting. Fasting is a segula for not being attracted, not being sensitive, so to speak, to the bodily needs, and sensitive more to the ruch needs, to the neshama needs, and the neshama messages. There's no interference from the physical experience. So he fasted, and he became very adept on understanding profound inyanim and alakus. But then the fast has affected his health, and to the point where he was mamish not well. then he says that to put on tefillin once is superior to all this fasting. To do one mitzvah is superior to all this fasting, all this purification. I just want to mention, yes, the nefesh elokis is definitely involved and interested in a healthy body.
Well, okay. And the nefesh habamis is also involved in this?
Nefesh habamis is also involved, of course. It's his domain. Except the nefesh habamis says, yeah, eat my thing, it's good, I enjoy it. Nefesh elokis says, no, eat so that you'll be healthy. And this is where their conflict comes in.
So you have to fast all the time to appreciate that.
Huh?
So you have to fast all the time to appreciate that.
I don't know.
You have to fast all the time to appreciate that. That's the plan.
In the healing process, is the nefesh habamis involved?
In what?
In the healing.
The healing process also, yeah, because the nefesh habamis cannot enjoy the food if it's sick.
So what's the difference in this process than the nefesh chayunis and the nefesh habamis?
Okay, let's leave that.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
if healing is not a bodily matter, then it's purely spiritual. Why are there scars? Why do we heal incompletely sometimes?
Okay, good question. Healing is directing and is by the nefesh. But healing can only take place if there isn't a fundamental damage in the body. In other words, if a place in the body is missing, it's missing. But if it's just a cut, everything is there, and there's to bring it back together. That can heal to perfection. And we've mentioned many times, you have a cut in the finger, even the fingerprints are restored, which is a completely within the physical arena is a spiritual thing, and that only the nefesh knows about the fingerprints. All right, enough of that.
Yeah, but you just mentioned there are cases where there's a scar.
There's a scar.
It doesn't heal.
I'm saying that a scar is the. I really want to know. It's going off tangent.
Okay.
The scar is because of something was missing when it happened, or it didn't. The healing there was a prevention from healing starting at the right time. If there's an infection that I always mention that somebody has a cut and he is concerned about that, is constantly looking, is it still open? If he's going to keep it opening it's not going to heal properly. The way to heal it is to put a disinfectant on it and put a Band-Aid on it and forget about it. When he continues to examine it, then yes, it's not going to heal properly. Yeah, please, thank you. So all this is to show that, I started saying, what is life? We say there's a life element. And we actually can relate. We say it's a life element. What is the life element? The life element is that which is not vulnerable to physical damage. We have plenty of experiences, and we have, everybody says, I see a person, an elderly person, whose physical strength has waned completely. Well, but he's all there. What do you mean he's all there? His spirit is complete. That spirit, this is the Nissan, this is the life of it. Although he cannot really function based on that spirit. What does all this tell us? What is the point? The point is that Oir, the Chayus, is a representative of the truth of the Nefesh itself. It is not dependent on the place where it manifests itself, on the goof. It is representative of the fact of the truth of the Nefesh itself. And that's why, under all circumstances, it is whole and healthy. So these oiros, they are rooted, he says, oil milo is from oil in soif mamash. The root in oil in soif, except that they go through the tzimtzum. Okay, so let's talk about the tzimtzum briefly. Tzimtzum essentially means that the oil is contracted in a manner that it should have a functional focus. That's a tzimtzum.
Allowing it to have functional what?
Functional focus. The muscle that we always use in this is we have daylight. Daylight is a phenomenon, is a level of light. Normally, our world is fundamentally dark. And when you have a focus light, you shine a flashlight, you're able to see objects despite the fact that it's dark. So then this light is actually dispersing some of the darkness. It's constantly fighting with the darkness. And you see that essentially it is dark, but you're illuminating a dark situation. This is normal light. This is not the real inyan of etzem or oyer. Daylight has a different nature completely. Daylight totally eliminates, does not fight with darkness. Totally eliminates darkness. To the extent, as I mentioned many times, that during daylight it is difficult to imagine that just in 2 minutes it's going to be dark. This is in fact what it is. As long as the sun is just above the horizon, it's daylight. 5 minutes later, it sets and becomes dark. And you couldn't even imagine that that darkness is still there, because it has been completely eliminated. To give us a really, close look at this phenomenon. You have a living human being. A living human being is alive through and through. This is an neshama life. You don't see the body living. You see a living neshama. And we all know, unfortunately, that the case is still true, that we live 120 years and then our life ends. And yet, every time that a person passes, we're all shocked. We're shocked. What are you shocked? You know this is going to wane. Because life is so real, fundamentally real, you can't imagine that it's going to dissipate. When in fact the truth is it doesn't dissipate, the neshama continues to live, because it's a fundamentally real element of life. It's not dependent on circumstance. This is really an interesting thing. The passing away of a person is always shocking because you can't believe it happened. Because it's completely contrary to what you saw a moment ago.
I'm not sure what you mean by shocking. If a person is ill for
Shmuel, please.
What, disturbing maybe. Shocking.
So, Shmuel, I asked you. Why is it? Because we are sensing that this is that the life element that we are observing in the person is not just a functional level. There's a living soul in there. It's a source of life, and that never dissipates. It cannot dissipate. Where did the soul go? So this is what we are talking about over here. The oiros, as it says over there, or the line begins with hatzimtzum. The lifnei hatzimtzum hoyo hagilu b'chinas ein sof mamash. Before the tzimtzum, there was a gilu b'chinas ein sof. B'chinas ein sof means the essential reality of a lakus. Therefore, in order that there should be an oir that should be able to come on a worldly level, it has to go through a tzimtzum. So thus, this whole discussion over here is for the purpose of showing us that the oir, because it is rooted in oir sof mamash, therefore the oir does not inherently contain any definitive aspect of any midas or any seichel. Yeah.
We started saying light goes through a tzimtzum so that this would allow for a functional focus. And then we talked about daylight, about how it's so fundamental and it eliminates darkness. And you can hardly anticipate darkness of night.
Right,
But
so I understood. True. So daylight has both of these elements. On the one hand, it completely eliminates darkness. On the other hand, we also see physical objects as a result of it. This is an element of tzimtzum in the oil. As we all know that if there is an excess of light, you can't see anything. Okay, we're up to?
Mamash.
Yeah, mamash. And as it says in Yitzchayim, in the beginning, the terem shenetzlo haneatzolim. Yitzchayim said the terem shenetzlo haneatzolim, that before the neatzolim. Neatzolim means atzilus, essentially the union from emanation, as we discussed, distinction between emanation and creation. Creation means a new entity came into being, and essentially it's an entity that has its definition, and it stands on itself. It has a presence that, even though the presence was given to it did not create itself, but nevertheless at this moment Its presence is independent of anything else. Emanation is a different kind of thing. It's also a creation. But emanation is an emanation that stays representative of the source from where it emanates.
And Netzorim means emanation.
What?
Netzorim
Netzorim means emanation, yes. That's why Atzilus is of a special quality, because they're not real creations, they're emanations. So it says in Chaim, before Netzel HaNetzorim Hoyo Eir Elyoim Poshut. So there was a superior Oir Poshut. Poshut means without, undefined. Memale Kol HaMetzius. And it filled the entire presence. V'loi Hoyo, and thus there was not Loi B'chinas Roish, V'loi B'chinas Sof. There was not the aspect of the beginning, and not the aspect of the end. Okay, this already allows us to think into this a bit. What is Bechinas Roish? Bechinas Roish, an aspect of our head. Roish means, where does it begin? Where does it come from? Bechinas Soif means, how far did it reach? Since that all oil comes from Etzel, therefore by definition there is the beginning, and then there is the end. What does it mean? There is no beginning and no end. No beginning, no beginning. And the explanation is as follows. And again, I want to go back to our Masholim, and we'll be able to understand it. First, I'll give you the explanation in a nutshell. That the oir in Soif is not an oir for the purpose of oir. It's an oir for that represents the Etzem, the presence of the Etzem itself. And our motion with this is ready made. That if you have, like I said, the story with a host and a guest. If one person invites somebody else to be his guest, and we all understood that this invitation is very significant, and the significance is not only in the fact that he is serving him a hefty lunch, but in his very presence. That is the most important aspect of the whole invitation. His very presence. In other words, by his presence, he is giving him himself. Although the lunch is also of himself. The lunch will be representative of what kind of person he is. What his seichel does, what is a good lunch, however you define it. But the most important aspect of it here is something that goes beyond kelim, beyond definitive form, and that is his very presence. His very presence is like this. It's not him. They're two separate people still. They're two separate people. But as a separate person, he is giving him the truth of his presence. This truth of his presence eventually expresses itself in all kinds of different things. Expresses itself in the fact that he's trying to make him comfortable. He serves him a lunch. He entertains him. He tells him stories. There are all kinds of different things that come as a result of his presence. But the primary element in this is that which does not, all the other things, the lunch and all has a beginning and an end. But this is he's giving him himself. He's giving him the reality of his own presence, of his own being. This does not come in the form of beginning and end. This is, let me say, the reality of the relationship. So, Ayin Sof means that it was representing the etzem, the very godly reality. That does not come in the form of beginning or end, because it does not have a functional definition. Its meaning is that it's there, that the truth is there. So this is what the Ayin Sof memale kol hamtzius, and there is no top and there's no bottom. There's no sense that this is coming from someplace. What is coming, when you say it's coming from someplace, that is something which has a functional definition. But this is not a question of functional. This is I'm giving you my very presence. Not even the intellectual expression, the emotional expression, anything. Just I'm here with you. This is the pshat of these words. Lehoyo lei bechinas roish, lei bechinas soif. Not the aspect of roish, not the aspect of soif. Which means it did not possess the element that it's coming from someplace. Although in fact it is coming from someplace. It's oir. But this oir is representing not what is being given, but where it's coming from. The reality of the essence itself. And therefore it doesn't have Bechina Sof and Bechina Sof. Just like in our emotional of the host, his presence, the presence of these two people does not come piecemeal. Does not come in a organized fashion. It is the reality of their presence. Okay, so we speak about these things all the time, and I want that we should understand. For us to be sensitive to these concepts, and to recognize the difference between the lunch that's being served and the presence of the host, is extremely, extremely important. This is what intellect is all about. This is what seichel is all about.
And the relationship is Ein Rosh Ve'Ein Sof, because the relationship goes on etzem. Yeah?
That's right. Not only the relationship, he is revealing to him his etzem, not any aspect of his etzem.
By virtue of being there.
By virtue of being there.
Why do we
And again, this is important to understand. They remain two separate entities, people. And yet there is some kind of reality in this setting that you can't even put your finger on it.
Meaning there's some shared reality. They're remaining separate. What's the point here? They're remaining separate, and yet there's what, a shared reality that is kind of put your finger on?
No, I don't know how to define it. I know one thing, that if one of them leaves, there's a terrible loss. To the point where that all the lunch that he served like I said, we mention all the time that if the host should leave, he serves him lunch, and the host, the guest will not be able to leave the lunch.
Right.
It'll turn him inside out. I can't
Yeah.
stand it. What am I going to eat lunch? Is that what I'm here about?
And the fact that they remain separate, like you said, in the presence of Etzem, that's not.
The fact that they remain separate means that this transmission, transmission of their relationship is through an oir. There's some kind of an intangible element that comes through. And it's not affection, it's not love, it's just a reality.
How does this not have a Reish?
Doesn't have a rush.
It comes from somewhere.
It comes from somewhere, but it doesn't come in a kind of organized fashion. It is the reality of that source itself.
We can't say. It seems like we can't say this is like the sun though, because the rays come from the sun.
No, wait a second. I don't want. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Not really.
It does not come, which means there is not there is not a difference between the first moment that you met and the second moment that you meet. There's not a difference. Even they stay together for an hour. He leaves, all of a sudden the whole thing is out. This is a principle which is very difficult for us to understand, and much less to relate to, but it's a fact. The reason that we can that the difficulty is because we try to understand everything within a worldly context. But the fact is that the human being is not a worldly context. The significance and the truth of the human being is a godly truth. Those idiots that say a human being developed from a monkey are mamish idiots. It's a godly presence in the world. Okay?
Rabbi.
Yeah.
In the context we're speaking of now, it seems like there's nobody else in the picture. The examples we're given understand there's a host and there's a guest. So we talk about Gilui. Who is this for exactly? And before there's
no. You're right. Yeah. Of course, the example that we're giving is that you should see that there is such a truth in a person, and we sense it under these circumstances. Surely it's not the identical thing. But that's what emotional is. Emotional is you take a much lower element, and there you show a certain point that alerts you to recognizing a much higher thing. So that's how it says. Initially, the oil element poshet, this was the oil eleki that had no recipients. If I may, I know the same guys to be with me, and I want to just add this insight. The significance of the fact that the initial oil is merely a representation of the oil atzmi. and it didn't have any of these definitive aspects of that later came, it's very significant. What is the significance? We should understand that what was later came into a tzimtzum, and it came into creation, and became olam hazeh. There is still an element. It was initiated initially from atzmos. That's what it says. Who created the world? The oil, or that's not the Eibusha created the world. There's an element. There's a truth to the world that is defined by the fact that God wants it. The aspects that are there are very limited. But still God really wants it. As is reflected in the fact that He gave us mitzvahs. In this world, I want you to act like this. What's the difference how we act in this world?
But from God's point of view, nothing has changed, right? So what is this? What is this all about then?
From the Shmuel's point, nothing has been said. So what is this? Are you trying to understand what we are saying, or are you trying to figure out on your own?
Both.
No, that's not both. So there's no way that that's not what you're here for.
Oh, you're saying that it stands on its own, it's creation.
So this is what we're saying, that yes, it absolutely has tremendous significance, all the way up to Atzmos. And the initial oil, like it represented Atzmos, and then there was a tzimtzum from that and so forth. But ultimately, that is reflected at the bottom, on the very bottom. I said we have mitzvahs. Malachim don't have mitzvahs. We have mitzvahs, and there's nothing superior than mitzvahs. Like going back to the motion of the host and the guest, so we had this motion in approaching it from two different directions. The same as we say that if the host leaves, then the guest is left with an open mouth. There is the opposite. What if after the host serves him this lunch, the guest says, "Oh, it's a nice lunch." He packs it up and says, "I'm going to take it home." He's also missing the point. Okay, I'm taking it home.
I didn't get how does.
Okay, let me explain. I love this experience of putting on film. I love it. I love the experience of Shabbos. People say, "Oh, Shabbos, a day of rest is great. It's a very smart thing to do." You're missing the whole thing. It's like taking the lunch home. Understand? Yeah.
What is the correlation between Nitzalim and the mashal of the host and the guest?
In the case of the host and the guest, this phenomenon of that's transpiring between them exists only in the actual presence of both.
Okay.
There's nothing you can take with you. That's not something. It only means something emanates, but it is there only in the presence of the source. Not becomes a separate source.
Okay. But then comes the second question: how come emanation we define as being related to the source, and how could not they have beginning and end?
No. This emanation, this is a much lower level. The initial oil has no beginning and end. That's not, and it's only much further down after the Simpson. You want to see a miracle? That we here can talk about these things. And it's a miracle. Okay.
Yeah.